Madam Speaker, and on our program we ask, should whistleblowers come forward, and if they do, what reality faces them? More importantly, can they be protected? Tobile Madonsela, in theory, as Itumeleng is saying, we have the strong architecture of law. It would seem in reality, people are not protected when they come forward.
Yes, unfortunately that is the case. In terms of our legislation, our whistleblowing legislation is actually one of the best frameworks when we compare it to other countries. But in terms of implementation and interpretation, that's where we fall short. We find these heroes that come and have moral courage to speak up about the truth being victimized and suffer the detrimental to their occupation and sometimes death. And unfortunately it's this narrative that society knows that if you blow the whistle, there are the bad consequences for you. And unfortunately, that doesn't give any favor to the legislation which says that you are protected.
Cherise Taku, in the work that you do, is there a lot of incentive for people to come forward?
No, and I think what Suzanne says shows that exactly. I mean, the only thing that motivates people to come forward is basically their own sense of moral rectitude. And in return for that, they are rewarded with detriments in the workplace. They're ostracized, they're bullied. It's really not a lot for them to make them actually come forward.
Well, here's the reality, right? Because you can be seriously hurt. You can be killed for stepping forward. We think of a case a few years ago of Kola Banisi. He was a SAMU worker. He uncovered some irregularities and wrongdoings at Bloemwater. He'd handed a docket over to the Hawks. He was murdered outside his girlfriend's home. Who can forget former ANC Youth League Secretary Sindiso Magakla? He was killed after a shooting incident in 2017. And people who were speaking at his funeral were saying it had to do with some form of corruption in the local community. Deborah, what's concerning me is that we know through the State of Capture Commission of Inquiry that rot went on for too long before people started to speak out. So we know the consequence of not speaking out. Yes. And yet what I'm hearing increasingly is we may have great laws, but people are on their own.
Yes, and I think it also speaks to a broader societal problem that, we don't view whistleblowers as heroes and people that have moral courage. I think there's the idea that whistleblowers are snitches, and I think the public at large and, political parties and, colleagues, as Suzanne has said, should do more to encourage and, just support whistleblowers, because at the end of the day, they provide such an important service to justice.
But here's the thing, whistleblowers are not necessarily the best of us. As we're seeing in the State of Capture Commission of Inquiry, and I'm only invoking it because it's the most recent thing that I think we've been seeing it unfold, is that even the vessels that are, giving their story are not sinless, they're not blameless.
Yes.
So that's the one aspect. But Cherise, in terms of the work that you do, we also find cases where whistleblowers, well-intentioned as they were, may have found to have made a mistake or not been right about something.
Yes, so basically what the law requires is that you need to have like a reasonable sense that the information that you're providing is true, is substantially true actually. So you need to be somewhat certain of the information that you're providing. And even that standard can be quite scary to whistleblowers, because there is actually a criminal offense if you make a false disclosure. So, and that is reasonable of the law to have that, because you definitely want to have a protection against false or bad faith disclosures. So it's a balancing exercise.
So if you look, Tobile, at the context in which this is all happening, dysfunctionality, rampant corruption, you really have to be strongly motivated to come out and speak. Even in the context of what seems to me a really, really grim outlook for whistleblowers, in your view, why should they still come forward?
I think, as Deborah said, that as society, we also need to support these people. These people, we are actually beneficiaries of whether directly or indirectly, of their courage. So it is difficult, and case in point, the people that have died and laid their lives for this. But we need to try, as Cherise said, we need to fix the country. We need people to speak up, and so that we all, society, have to support them and be with them, so that we don't ostracize them when they speak up, because we are, as I said, the beneficiaries. Yes. They stop the corruption. We are now in state capture where things are unraveling. And only then are we only saying to what extent has this country really been compromised.
All right, so Suzanne,
I don't know if I can take you back.
Go ahead, Deborah.
So, I mean, it's completely true what you said, that they're not all angels. Not all whistleblowers are angels, and it's quite obvious. You know, there are those that have moral courage, they see something wrong and they come forward, but there are also those unsavory characters that we see coming forward in, you know, the State Capture Commission. But, you know, my point is...
Racist, unsavory characters.
Exactly, precisely. But, you know, the crux of the matter is, at the end of the day, they provide such an important service. And as Tobile has said, we are all beneficiaries of what they do. And regardless of whether they're an angel or they're an unsavory character, we are all beneficiaries of what they do.
Suzanne, would you do it again?
I'd be a lot more prepared.
How?
I'll do a lot more research. I mean, I know you can't, but just to be prepared for the onslaught. I think, I mean, as much as you objectively look at it, you know, you still, the impact on my family, the impact on me, I mean, there were...
Well, tell me about your family.
There were days that I never left my room because I was so scared. You know, picking up my phone was an act of daring, because someone would phone me and, you know, swear at me or tell me lots of unsavory things or threaten to do something to my family and myself. The best thing for me was that my family rallied around me.
And not everyone has that infrastructure of support. Itumeleng, how can we serve those who want to come out and tell their truth better?
Yeah, I think the moment you feel the courage to blow the whistle, like in Suzanne's case, when she approached Parliament, say she could have approached a constitutional body like the Public Service Commission or the Public Protector. I think what these institutions need to do is, from that point, be able to provide assistance and advice so that you can know what is in store for you.
But the reality is, it doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, and that is why I'm saying that is...
So whose responsibility is it then to make the ultimate argument that you will be protected, that the laws really scaffold you and protect you?
Yeah, I've already indicated it is built into their legislation, but unfortunately it is not working. It is the court. The court is the only institution that can stop occupational detriment. If you say that I've been subjected to a disciplinary hearing, then the court has the power to intervene.
Suzanne?
You see, the court only deals with your employment situation. It doesn't deal with your personal situation, and it doesn't deal with the ramifications that you have after that. You know, and that is where whistleblowers... I mean, for me to have gone to the High Court after successive suspensions, successive that, would have cost a lot of money, number one. Firstly, I didn't have access to that because when you suspended from employment, you have to fund your own legal costs. You know, so you are doubly, triply prejudiced because you isolated from all the things. I mean, in my employment contract, Eskom had a duty to protect me from a security point of view. They didn't. You know, so the very tenets of our legislation, the one thing that the legislation allows you is to go to court. But to get from where you are to court is a massive step.
All right, so it's a disturbing picture that we're getting in. I don't know if you're watching the program, what you think, and if you're considering stepping out into the light, will you after this conversation? When we return, we'll get closing remarks from our guests. You're watching, Madam Speaker.